content over everything.
No, they didn't. That's where red hair. Are you talking about the people with the red hair and so on? No, they didn't. Blonde hair and blue eyes, and you can still see this now to where the diaspora is. Particularly blonde hair is a very, very small sect of like European society. It's a very kind of like minute thing. It's Scandinavia, it's all of them places. When you're talking about the Barons, you're more talking about Iran, you're talking about those areas where you do get light-skinned Arabs. It was never really Scandinavian. So where do you get the blonde hair from? Because that was not.
It originates from Yamna, which is like Ukraine.
I seriously thought you were wearing a cape.
We're talking about the Barons. The Barons were more from
the long time.
The Levant than they were Scandinavian people.
Okay.
But
yeah.
But yeah, so completely different people. This is not. We're talking about the Barons.
The Bering Straits.
Not too. The Barons who came over to the Doridians. We're talking about the caste system within India and how that originated. And we're talking about how the Barons who were kind of like the Iranians came down. Yeah.
It's very funny because I was talking about the caste system today with a friend with regard to Mauritania and Senegal.
Okay.
And how that impacts on the decision of the president of the Gambia, Barrow, to call out Aung San Suu Kyi in Myanmar for her, they say, alleged complicity in the maltreatment and ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya.
Okay.
But he, the same president of the Gambia, isn't talking about his own people. The problem that Mauritania inflicted upon his own people 30 years ago to the day. So that same caste that you're discussing was in my mind to discuss at some point. Although for many Pan-Africanists, it's delicate because they'd rather rather people not conceive of African societies as having a caste system.
Do you feel like mixed race people who are half white, half black see themselves as superior to, say, really dark actual Africans?
Depends on where they are. Bob Marley didn't.
There you go.
I don't think Barack Obama did either. Because there are certain places where being mixed race means you're black.
Yeah.
Now, by contrast, there are other places where being mixed race, you get upgraded, as it were, patrilineally. So if your father were an Arab and you had a black mother, I'm using Arab as a term of art to describe whites. Because in Mauritania, like I was discussing, the Arabs call themselves Baybam, which means whites. They don't mean white like in Europeans. They mean in comparison to people, the sub-Saharan. So, in that case, yes.
Barons had the same thing.
Barons?
The Barons.
I keep not understanding this term,
I'll elaborate on it later. I'll elaborate.
So
the idea was that we were discussing how the Doridians, when they first started their civilization, were very dark-skinned people, and then the Barons, as I remember it, came from the north down to conquer.
Spell the word to me, please.
Barian. Barons.
Is it like Aryan?
Yeah, similar to Aryan.
It's the same thing?
Yeah, similar.
Oh no, we're on the same page. I've caught up now.
Yeah. So I was basically saying how it's the same thing. When they kind of first came, they had a status, or they had like a class, an elite class, which tend to be of people of a light-skinned culture, but it was never really that they assigned people with light skin that kind of privilege or that kind of status of being elite. But later on, as time went on, because of the them only kind of like keeping it to themselves and keeping it very kind of like a quarantine, the idea of light skin became affiliated with affluence, wealth, and being part of that elite culture. And I'm saying that this not just inspired, but it has kind of like trickled down and created the caste system that we know in India.
Why is it that the British found it easy to conquer India? Do you think there's a correlation of them seeing themselves as lighter skin played a part in it?
You think they found it easier?
In comparison to where?
Well, exactly, I was wondering that.
Well, conquering India usually takes decades, but in this case, the East India Company, I remember, made a lot of strategic allies and.
Well, you have to look at if you're trying to compare it from what you sound like you're saying, you're comparing it to previous conquests, like the Mughal Empire. There was a parity in military weaponry.
Yeah.
With the British, there was no comparison. The British had cannon, they had rifles, they had artillery. The Mughals at the time had the worst, the most rudimentary level of artillery. Whereas when the Mughals invaded India, they both had spears and arrows and swords and
Horseback.
lances and horses. Or similar. So I think it would be much easier for the British when they wanted to. Now, the British were also during past masters of diplomacy. The British had learned, like any good predator, a lion does not go and engage a buffalo if there is a zebra there.
I like that.
Like any good predator, the British realized, how did Churchill put it? More jaw, rather than war. You talk your way to victory if you can. When all else, when diplomacy fails, you put people against each other, like you were saying. When that fails, and you have to come clean about your intentions, you just occupy the people by force.
All right,
so,
of course, occupied by force, but you feel like the Mughal Empire did themselves a disservice when they would destroy Hindu temples and all those other things, whilst the British didn't really do that?
I'm not sure I am entirely clear.
It's easy to pacify them if you break their religion.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Now, first of all, I want to examine that case because I don't like history that's oversimplified.
Yeah.
First of all, you had people like Tamerlane. You really couldn't call him a Mughal, yet Babar claims descent from Tamerlane, Central Asian. Tamerlane, in turn, claimed descent from Chagatai, one of the sons of Genghis Khan. So, when you're looking at invasions of India from Central Asia by Muslims, if you want to reference somebody like Tamerlane, Tamerlane was just a military conqueror. For him, Islam was secondary to everything else. A lot of destruction that occurred under Tamerlane cannot be laid at the door of Islam. Because if you want to...
It's not inspired by Islam to...
No, not at all, and I'll explain to you why. One of the biggest battles ever fought, but it goes unremarked this side of the world, is the Battle of Ankara, 1400. The Battle of Ankara was fought between the rising Ottoman Empire that was heading west and the rise of the Central Asian Empire of Tamerlane. Tamerlane decided to be mischievous when he heard Bayezid, who was called Yildirim. Bayezid Yildirim. Yildirim means lightning. So Bayezid was called Yildirim, the lightning warrior, because of his ability to dash, move, and he was called the sword arm of the Lord. So he liked to revel in all these titles until Tamerlane came around, much further away to the east. And Tamerlane said, who is this man I hear of? A fellow Turk that I hear of who thinks he's all that on a bag of chips. Let me know this man. So Bayezid turned back. Bayezid was entering Europe at the time. He was just crossing over into what is today called that part of Edirne and Constantinople, that bit of Europe. When he turned back, he said, who is this upstart? Let me deal with this. He had no idea who the hell he was dealing with. He underestimated Tamerlane. There's two Muslims now. Watch it now. Two Muslims confronting each other, and Tamerlane utterly, completely smashed the armies of Bayezid. Not only did he smash his armies, he put a collar on his neck and kept him at his table like a dog while his wife was made to serve naked at his table.
Wow.
Ain't no Muslim to do that. There's nothing Islamic in that. So put that from your mind. Now that also dovetails with a lot of destruction of India by Tamerlane. Well, let's go down in history. Those are not Mughals yet. We haven't come to the Mughals yet. Let's go to the Mughals. That'd be Babar. When they passed through the Hindu Kush and invaded India, they met a lot of stiff opposition, as you would. Nobody likes being invaded. There was no, at that time, as I understand it, intentional, deliberate destruction of Hindu temples. There would have been some leaders later on, like Aurangzeb. But definitely at the apex of Mughal power, leaders like Akbar the Great not only respected Jainism, Buddhism, and Hinduism, his court, his royal divan was always crowded with philosophers of all these religions with whom he would sit and have. In fact, there's a belief that Akbar the Great wasn't a Muslim at all. This is because of his open-mindedness to other faiths, interfaith dialogue. That's the word I'm looking for. There is a notion of feeling. Now let's come to the Babri Temple in Ayodhya, which was destroyed in 1992. Let's come to that, because I noticed the easy reach for people is to talk about where Muslims destroyed things. Now let's look at this. When the temple was destroyed, in 1992, they claimed that Babur destroyed a Hindu temple dedicated to the god Ram, and on its ruins he established what was called the Babri Mosque. Babri Mosque. This has been uncovered to be a complete lie. It's a complete fabrication. A BJP conceived an idea that in areas that are of religious importance, not sites, regions, like certain parts of India, that their mythical heroes came from. People that are in the Mahabharata. You know those, Ram, Sita, Hanuman, you know those famous, Krishna,
Rama, Sita,
Arjuna,
yeah.
Right, the area where they came from, the BJP had an idea that, look, it is incompatible with the presence of Islam in this area. So we have to find excuses to start destroying mosques. And it's easy, as my brother, yes, my brother, shalom, peace, my brother. Yeah. It is easy to blame, to exaggerate the blame, the culpability that Muslims must carry for acts of excessive damage and destruction, some of which they did. But like I always like to quote when I'm here. Let me just quote this for you. You know Bob Marley? You talked about Bob Marley just now. You know he had a song, Eric Clapton sang it, or he took it from Eric Clapton. I Shot the Sheriff. I Shot the Sheriff. Y'all know that song? Come on, y'all need to sort up on your Bob Marley around here. I shot the sheriff.
Oh yeah. Didn't shoot the deputy.
And there's a lot of wisdom in it, because a lot of people blaming Muslims for shooting the sheriff and the deputy. Yeah, we may have shot the sheriff, but we haven't shot the deputy. And my role is to come and say, y'all stop putting blame on Muslims where it ought not to go. Where we have done wrong, we should put our hands up and take the blame for that. But the Mughal Empire itself brought a lot of good to northern India. It had brought a lot of stability. And I will agree with you insofar as nobody wants to be conquered or invaded or imposed upon. I would agree with that. But I sometimes try to give a pass. Yeah, I'm giving a pass to people in history when the military of both adversaries is at a parity. For example, when we talk about the Vikings conquering bits of England, you've read of King Alfred and the Danjuma and all that, and he had to push back on them. Well, yeah, the Saxons were fighting a people who were akin to them in blood and even creed, their original religion, and the Vikings were only complaining about what they themselves had done to the British Celts about 400 years earlier. They established themselves in England pretty much the same way the Vikings were imposing themselves upon them. But having become Christian, and Alfred was almost saint-like in his Christian practice, having become Christian, they tended to put a distance between what they had done in the past, how they had arrived in England, and what's happening to them now with the Vikings coming in. But when I look at it, they both have the same kind of weapons, they both have the same sort of social culture, and it is a function of that kind of history that wasn't colonial. The Vikings weren't actually building a colonial empire with one set of rules, one centralized authority, and systematically dehumanizing other people. Yeah, they were killing and raping and and plundering. Who the hell?
I think that's a very European thing to go
What, to
on.
kill and pillage and plunder?
Yeah, pillaging,
Genghis Khan didn't pillage?
raiding and piracy.
Genghis Khan didn't do that?
Yes.
He was very European, wasn't he?
of human population.
No. No. I say all cultures do it. You know,
Yeah.
people,
What I think is, look,
it's just
and
different styles.
a Pan-Africanist brother got upset with me when I said it about Shaka in South Africa. He got upset when he said Shaka had militarized in order to push back against the European invasion. I said,
Yeah.
well, no, that was Setiswayo at the Battle of Isandwala a couple of years later on. At the time of Shaka, the Europeans had not yet presented themselves as a threat. He had, perhaps like Tamerlane, decided to militarize and expand. And people sometimes just do that. Sometimes there's no logical explanation to a man having a particular force of personality he can impose on others. And if he can do that and mobilize them by his sheer charisma, by his example.
I don't think it's just charisma, it's also promoting through meritocracy. That's what Genghis Khan did. You know, he didn't care about the nobility having all the perks. He only cared if you did the best
Was he
job.
noble himself?
Yes, but that's
Temujin.
not... Temujin, he was...
Who was his father
I
again?
don't think he was.
Chief of one of the tribes.
Yeah, because I know that he was temporarily disinherited and
Yeah.
he had to claw his way back.
Remember he fought
Yeah,
his...
not once but twice.
Yeah.
Because first of all, like he lost. His father was poisoned by the Tatars, and there was a war between his tribe and the Tatars.
Yeah.
Then he was like fled for his life with his brother. Then him and his brother they restored themselves to power. But then him and his brother were fighting each other, and that's the
That
moment-
wasn't his brother, you know.
It was his brother.
Jamuka was not his real brother.
No, it's his
They
blood-
call themselves
his
brothers.
blood
Yeah.
brother.
Look, basic. Okay, fine.
Jamuka no.
No, what they did was a ceremony where they cut their...
Yeah, but it was his brother.
Yeah, okay.
Just like his
Blood
the
brother.
Duke
Oath-
chief.
oath brother.
Apparently,
I just wanna catch up with Leo
yeah,
really
all right,
His
yeah.
actual brother,
Just
but they
like,
called each other
yeah, I know
brothers.
that. Okay.
But they had a war between them,
Sidebar,
and then
yeah.
Genghis Khan became a
Yeah,
slave.
and that's the thing, that what caused him and his brother to split was because Temujin wanted to promote through meritocracy, whilst Jamuka wanted to have the still
Keep the status
nobility
quo.
and-
Yeah, I think I tend to try to make a distinction between that kind of warfare and the warfare. Alaikum salam. How you doing, my brother? You all right? You looking the part. You beginning to look the part, mashallah. Lovely to see you. Yes, sir.
Would you agree that Shaka promoted through meritocracy? Shaka Zulu?
Yeah, I'm saying what I'm saying about that is I tend to make a distinction between that kind of warfare and warfare where the two combatants are unequally matched. Like like the Battle of Omdurman, when they were fighting the dervishes, and they had all these cannon and Krupp guns and Maxim guns aligned, and these guys were rushing towards these tanks saying la ilaha illallah, and they were being mown down. To me, that is colonial warfare. To me, and that's moreover,
So you're saying it's not honourable?
it's not honorable, but not only that, it tends to take a people, Assalamu alaikum. It tends to take a people and dehumanize them. Colonial warfare starts from the position that the side that is militarily superior is also, well, technologically superior and scientifically superior and socially superior. I'm coming to it. And biologically superior. All of these things come with colonial warfare. And that is why you're not just defeating. You're not just defeating an army or a person. You're actually breaking them as a people. You're destroying who they
I
are.
understand what you're saying. You're saying, like, in Africa, yes, there'll be wars, but people would know the boundaries of those wars and,
Yeah. Well, I'm making the same comments in Europe. The Vikings sold British people or Russian people to the Byzantines. They're all white people. But the military parity was similar. The Vikings just had more ferocity in the idea of taking the fight overseas to other people. Even the word berserk comes from berserker, which is a state into which Vikings would whip themselves prior to fighting. Yeah, biting their shields and carrying on them, terrifying the bejesus out of people.
You could cut their arm off and they'll still
Yeah.
come at you, biting your face.
That's the difference, you would say, that other people had no answer for it. However, the Saxons, who they were terrorizing, I think the Saxons in church in England at the time, there was a litany that the priests used, a furore normanorum delivere nos. a furore normanorum, asking God, it's like a dua in Arabic, asking God, but in Latin of course, may God deliver us from the fury of the Vikings. It was that sustained for like 200 years.
Why do you think that the Northern Europeans are no longer as savage as their Viking ancestors are?
Well, they entered, I think partly, I said before, the Black Death was partly responsible for it.
Yep.
First of all, the feudal system arose, they say, as a means to repel predation. The Viking predation for 200 years was so incessant that the poorer classes said, look, if you, the guys on horseback, the knights, protect us, we will work for you. So there was an exchange of food for military protection, and the feudal system developed like that, which soon developed into a kind of slavery, a virtual form of slavery. After the Black Death, with 2/3 of the human population of England, of Europe, decimated, now it's no longer an employer's market, it's now an employee's market. They can demand wages, and that coinciding with the Spanish and the Portuguese, who had learned from the Moors, the Muslims who had occupied Spain for 700 years, taught them geography from globes, from spheres. Columbus learned the earth was flat. Learned the earth was round, spherical. Not because he discovered it himself. He had already,
Asia was closer than
he had already known it because Muslims in Spain taught geography using globes. That's how he knew, because I'll tell you something, anybody embarking on a journey like that has to have a small amount of assurance. You have to have some degree of assurance to embark with 3 ships on a journey into the unknown. So this age of discovery...
I'm pretty sure the nobility of Europe didn't know the earth was round, they just kept it to themselves. We know that since Herodotus in Greece, ancient Greece, that the earth was round.
Be that as it may, what I suspect happened was that Europe now is an employee's market.
Yep.
They can now demand and negotiate wages. You have all this flush of wealth coming in from the New World, from Mexico and from Peru, all that wealth. And it radically transformed things. Once there's a lot of wealth coming in, you can pay inventors and philosophers to sit down and think. Now, if you're enslaving a people, they don't have time to think. They're spending time on the run. And that's...
I agree with everything you said. I also would like to add in that throughout the medieval times there was a system of executing people for murder and for rape. And I think when you take away 1% of the male population every generation, you're therefore naturally going to correlate with a genetic group that becomes less savage or less rapey or less murderous, and therefore the overall population starts to become soft but more intelligent, because they're getting rid of people who are obviously low IQ if they're going to get caught and murder or rape. It's a bit like how they did this experiment with the Arctic fox, where they'll take one group of Arctic foxes that were bred only for being wild and savage, and one group of Arctic foxes that were bred only for being soft and pet-like, and it only happened in a few generations. So this is what North of Europe was going through, and then slowly you hit the Industrial Revolution, and obviously certain things had to correlate with them, making this coal as the most capable fuel to operate their steam engines and all that stuff, and the expanding of the villages to go and work in the cities to diverse their genetic group rather than just being in the village. Otherwise you get the village idiot because they inbred. So all those things all culminated into the Industrial Revolution and the expansion of the empires all colonialism.
So you would equate how people breed animals.
Yeah.
You believe this can happen in human behavior?
Definitely.
So then what you seem to be telling me then is, for the 400 years that Africans were taken out of Africa as slaves, some were even bred on slave breeding plantations in the Americas to produce a desired trait. You would say that the African in the diaspora, not the African who's in Africa on the continent, the one who grew up in, say, Jamaica, Trinidad, Brazil, North America, you would say that's something genetically encoded has happened over that 400 years?
Oh, what's that disease that Africans suffer from?
No, I'm not talking about in terms of diseases. I'm talking about in terms of a person who has been bred to be a hewer of wood and a drawer of water. Yeah, park that, because some Mediterraneans get that too.
Saying like African Americans don't have sickle cell. Don't have sickle cell disease.
Yeah, no, I'm trying not. You know, I'm nudging you somewhere. Let's go there.
Right.
I'm nudging you to what Europeans may intentionally or inadvertently have done to black people in the West, which is they may have bred. When they look at their sort of, you often hear them talking about underachievement, black on black violence. I'm questioning your idea if this can be done with Arctic foxes, and you say it's been done with some humans. I'm asking you do you believe in the space of 400 years of transatlantic slavery that the white man has bred a particular kind of black man to serve him in the West? Yeah. And is it genetically encoded?
I would say they would have done it subconsciously.
Right. Is this, because you're the one who brought the science, would this be something genetically encoded? So would I pass this, you from Caribbean? No. Would you pass I'm from the Caribbean as well. Would we be passing this down to our children if we married Caribbean women?
True. Yeah. True.
Yeah? Well, I'd like you to direct me to some reading on this.
Oh, definitely.
Because I know that you can, animals like a wolf, I don't know how long Homo sapiens took, or whether it was Homo erectus, who took a wolf and turned it into a dog.
Yeah.
I don't know if that took 2 generations, 3 generations of wolves. But remember, wolves live 1 year, to our 7.
Yeah.
So we are more, you could more equate us to elephants in terms of how long we live. So in terms of taking humans and breeding them, selectively breeding them. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. What's up, brother Khalid? You all right? Ahlan. Alaikum. You all right? I'm good. Now, what's up with y'all? Y'all have beef? Y'all beefing? What are you talking about? Yes, elephants. Was it elephants? See, elephants never fight. If I were an elephant, I would have remembered. What was I talking about? Breeding, selective breeding. But I'm saying dogs but the reason you can do that with chickens don't live that long. I can breed about 20 generations more. I think I can breed about 100 generations of chickens in my lifetime. That's different. Dogs don't live that long. When you check it. But a long-lived animal like an elephant or a human being, to breed that selectively where you can genetically encode servility, violence against itself. I'm trying to look at things that people talk, that stereotype black, our people most for, like the violence that's in the black community. Because the slaves were taught to work against their own interests and in the interests of the slave master. So in a pyramid of value, yes, that's what they did. The slaves were actually taught, if you unite, you play drums and talk in that language we can't understand, you get your hands cut off. So stop playing drums. Do not speak, if you speak Wolof and I speak Wolof, they would separate us. He speaks Somali and you speak Oromo, they put them together so that they would fight each other and so that they would work in the interest of the plantation. So if you were saying to me that in 400 years you can genetically encode you can program such behavior.
We genetically had selective breeding for, say, black people. They could be the smartest people in the world.
Do you think that happened to Jews?
Yeah.
By inadvertently killing them in pogroms in Europe? Do you think they killed off the least gifted and left the most, not the left? You're off, okay. Alaikum salam. Listen, Badri. Listen, Badri. How do you like the thing?
Yes,
it fit you?
Yes.
MashaAllah, I'm glad you liked it. Allah Barak fi. Let's tell them. Okay,
I think
Ashkenazim, talk about that,
I think Ashkenazi Jews were smart even before the Holocaust. But
why?
Because they were involved in banking.
But how did they get involved in banking?
Oh, because...
were they smart before the banking? Were they smart before the banking, or the banking made them smart?
Banking made them smart.
Well, how did they get involved with banking?
Because... money loaning?
Yeah, how did they get involved with it?
Well, the Christians wouldn't lend money, but only the Jews could.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, testing his knowledge there. Yeah. Well, I think also part of the problem, I don't think lending money is the only intellectual exercise that was going on at the time. I think what also it is perhaps, if I'm going to follow your argument, it could be that, you know, they used to have these periodic pogroms where they, unable to pay the Jewish moneylender, they would pick an excuse to go and kill them all in the ghetto. Now, if his argument is correct, and I would like for him to bring me next week some references, I can research this, perhaps what must have happened, if I'm following his argument, is that they killed off, the Jews that got killed first were the ones
Less intelligent.
leaving the more resourceful ones to breed.
Yeah.
I'm finding this a difficult conversation because it sounds like a kind of Darwinism that I find problematic and I've always resisted. I believe if you take an Australian Aborigine child, you could teach him to use a mobile phone better than I ever can. And so therefore there's nothing...
Well, all right. Could I take a Eskimo and teach him to be the fastest runner?
That's physical. That's a physical limitation.
So
An
physical
Eskimo
is
is, an Eskimo's physiognomy is squat. It is built to conserve heat. Kalenjin from Eldoret in Kenya is built to his body surface. The limbs are elongated in order to cope with heat. So it's two different. That's physical.
But wouldn't it be out of the realms of possibility to think that
You know how long it took the Eskimo to get like that?
mental adaptations are designed in a certain environment, but then when you put it in a completely different environment, it takes time to get used to it. But it's still.
But I want to tie you to your point you just made. If you are looking at an Eskimo, do you know it didn't take 4 generations for that to happen? Remember, okay, let's be generous about this. Slavery, let's say 10 generations, slavery, the transatlantic slavery. Let's say 10, it's about 7, but let's say 10. It would have been much more. What are you doing?
I'm trying to put the light on.
Oh, right. He's a naughty guy, you know. He tried to home in on your defects and sort of thing and then present them later on. I think with human evolution, physical, that takes time. It takes more than 10 generations for humans who were Homo sapiens who went into Europe to change from this color to his color. It took longer than that. It didn't just happen.
Don't you think we bred with Neanderthals?
Yeah, but that's not the reason why you got white. But then the Neanderthals would not have been white. The same argument applies to Neanderthals. They may not have been white when they arrived. But so I'm still wrestling with your analysis, equating that psychological encoding, the mental, with the physical changes of the Eskimo, which I know would take much longer.
Well, yeah, because.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I'll definitely. It's very hard to really objectively define of how much intelligence can one take if it's only been led to be trained to operate in the jungle. You know.
I believe children are children. I think if you take an Eskimo, like your example, child or Inuit, they like having, you take such a child and put that child in Metro where I live, and that child is given the technology that I am now learning. Because when I was a child, mobile phones were not invented. When I was a child, as I said to people, the biggest thing we had was a fax machine and a microwave. That's the biggest thing we had. So I had to learn these things. And because my mind was already technophobic, I already had a culture of not liking what technology was doing to the world. It took me long, but you take that same Eskimo child and he would learn it like that. Just like that.
How about this? Do you understand why there's hierarchies?
No.
You don't? So...
No, I don't understand the question.
Well, everything's like a pyramid, right?
Okay.
So there's something at the top of that pyramid is doing something right that everyone else is doing something wrong, you'd say?
I don't know that every society was organized like that.
I think about it. If the top of the pyramid are having the
most education, are we agreeing with your premise?
I think he's talking about the Western world.
No, but are we agreeing with your? Am I agreeing with your premise? Your premise seems to suggest that all societies are structured like that.
Yeah, and the top of the pyramid are elite class of people that are having the best education intergenerational.
All right, let me go with it. Let me go with your point.
Their minds are
Not
somewhat
to that, I
different
wouldn't
to
say
the
that
low
much.
caste or the bottom of the pile people who are not getting that same education or nutrition or all these other advantageous things that would lead.
You see, I don't know if it's as simple as that. I suspect, you know, I want to say something really funny now. Looking at animals in the zoo, I realized there's this gorilla sitting before this bowl of bananas, fresh fruit I'm talking about, really with the skins on and everything, and tucking it, I'm saying, and I'm eating a Mr. Kipling's cake. Am I insane? There's more nutrition in the box of Mr. Kipling's, other varieties are available, than in the actual cake. What I'm saying is, a lot of food a lot of peasants were eating was actually nutritionally superior to a lot of things the nobles were not used to. So it's not as easy as that.
I think the nobles had a lot more meat in their diet.
They had more
Meat's
meat.
good for your brain.
Meat at a certain point in your evolution. Yes, in the evolution, I know this young man. How are you? You all right? Yeah. In the evolution from the hunter-gatherer, yes. But now when we are sitting down and tucking into big steaks and we're doing sweet FA, it's actually counterproductive.
Not necessarily.
No,
You go
eating meat today.
You go hunting. You know, the nobility will always go hunting.
What are they hunting? Foxes? Oh, ridiculous.
And deer.
They don't hunt. I can go to Richmond Park and hunt deer if I want. But we're talking about...
Wild game.
Yeah, no, wild game is good. But today you only need a bit of meat. We don't need... I'm speaking to...
The
listen,
peasants would have meat for
listen,
months.
you're right, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to you as a card-carrying carnivore.
Yeah.
If I smell meat now, I'm going to see where I have to eat it. That's me. My missus is a vegetarian.
I got a chicken curry with.
My missus is a vegetarian. She doesn't like that. I eat meat. I do. No, I'm telling you. I don't need the volume of meat that I'm consuming. And I don't think that at a certain point in history, we needed that much. When we were evolving, we needed it for the brain, like you said. And that's how...
Structure.
Right, oh yeah. And that's how we leapt ahead in terms of ingenuity and all the rest
Why
of
the
it.
Vikings so successful? They're huge fuckers. You know?
Yeah, but I think the Saxon nobility had a lot of meat too. And stuff. So anyway, I'm
Like
not...
meat on Friday.
The jury
Meat
is...
on Fridays.
Yeah, I must... The jury is still out on the idea, to me, of encoded...
Well, if you look up the alternative hypothesis,
do.
First Worldism and the European Revolution, he goes into like what he's like found in the data of like records of like the homicide rate and how it goes down.
The alternative
Hypothesis.
hypothesis. So I imagine he's also going on to say that what is done can also be reversed.
Yes.
I hope so. Because I'd like to think human beings...
It takes time.
Well, it took time to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gone that far in his research. Is he saying that it takes longer to reverse?
No, things could happen in a very fast generation.
I haven't read it, so I don't want to start expressing my misgivings about it. But once something is called alternative, my alarm bells go up. You know what I wanted to talk about?
It's been a
Very nice talking. What's your name?
Jamie.
Jamie. And your colleague?
I'm not his colleague.
Oh, I thought you all. Okay. All right, guys, look after. You know what I'm going to ask people about? I wanted to ask this question about the resounding victory of the Tory party. Where is Heiko? Oh, there he is. I wonder if I should put that question. All right. I think I will. I'll put that question to him. Okay, yeah.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين أجمعين وبعد. Assalamu alaikum, people. I am not here to be divisive. I'm not here to be unnecessarily contentious. I have a little problem which is not going to take long because, like I said, the problem is small. And the issue I'm trying to discuss is the president of the Gambia did a good thing. He's done a laudable thing. He has hauled Aung San Suu Kyi before the court because of her alleged complicity